Good. Well, it's so lovely to be here with you today. It's a real joy and delight. As has been said, my name's Dom, and I work for TLG as a church relationship lead, supporting one of the programs that we run called Early Intervention. I've been in that role since September. So my background is I worked in primary education. I was a teacher for 16 years and in senior leadership within schools for 9 of those. I then moved into pastoring a church, which I did for about 6 years. As part of pastoring that church, I had a real heart, like you do here, for blessing the local community. And one of the things that we set up along with 2 other churches was a food bank. And 3 years ago, I stepped down from leading the church and moved into managing the food bank. And that was in Hatfield until we relocated as a family last June. So a year and 2 days ago, we moved house. And I'm now based in High Wycombe, so in the same county as you, just at the other end. As I discovered, it's a very long, thin county, taking about an hour to get here today. But it was a lovely drive up on a lovely sunny Sunday morning. So I just wanted to share with you, before we look at what we're going to be looking at today, kind of why did I want to get involved with TLG, and what is it about this organisation that particularly appeals, and maybe what's stirring some of you even now, because I know there's been discussions going on over the last few months with a number of people around it. Well, through my working life in school, in church, and certainly with the food bank, I saw firsthand the struggles that many children and families are facing on a daily basis, through poverty, through trauma, and through other challenges. And my real desire is I want to be someone who makes a difference. And I strongly believe as Christians, we are called to love God and love people. And for me, something like Transforming Lives for Good is a really practical way of doing that. It's a way of demonstrating my love for God and my love for people. So I'm here today as part of TLG, which is a national charity, Christian children's charity, working across the whole of the UK. And it's been great hearing this morning accents from different parts of the UK. We are operating in all 4 of the nations within the UK. And part of my role is I support churches running early intervention within the middle bit of England and Wales. So I get to travel and I get to hear what God's doing. We're a charity that's been running for 25 years, supporting children and families who are struggling and seeking to bring hope and a future for each and every one of them. So this morning we're going to spend just a few minutes, looking at some of the challenges being faced by children and families across our country. We're going to discover what God's heart is for all those who are walking in darkness. And then we're going to look at how Christians, we can respond to the need, and maybe even how you personally might want to join in with thousands of others seeking to bring that hope and a future. I need to remember my clicker now. So, brilliant. In Genesis 1, we read that in the creation story, the very first thing that God did is to speak light into the darkness. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. He created light before he created the sun, the moon, and the stars. Perhaps his intention there is to help us recognize that the light in this context is God himself. He's the source of all illumination, wisdom, knowledge, and truth. Let's just take a moment to think, what must it be like to live without the knowledge of God being light? We all know what it's like to physically be in darkness. Imagine that moment. We've all experienced it when the fuse box trips, or there's a power cut, and suddenly we're plunged into darkness. And after maybe the initial frustration, we start to consider how to get somewhere in safety. We suddenly become aware of all the potential hazards that we can't locate. Maybe there's cables on the floor, pieces of furniture in the way, sharp corners that might hurt us, bits of Lego. Many years ago, I was in Russia on a camp with some friends, and there was a power cut. There was 3 of us sharing a room, all grown men. That's important to remember. There was a power cut, and in the middle of a forest in Russia, there was no light at all. It was completely pitch black. And in the middle of this darkness, where we could see nothing at all, our toilet started to flush. All 3 of us were in our beds, but the toilet started to flush. In the darkness, we started to think very odd things. We're in a forest in Russia. They have bears in Russia. It must be a bear that's flushing our toilet. We've got a bear in our room with us and it's flushing the toilet. 3 grown men, remember? Who's going to go and check it out? Well, I'm not going. You going? No, I'm not. No, you go. No. Let's go together. So we kind of link hands. Anyone got a torch? No. Let's get our phone out. And we're going across the room to check out whether there was indeed a bear flushing the toilet. There wasn't. We still don't know why the toilet started to flush itself. But in that moment, in the darkness, we started to imagine all sorts of things. And isn't that what happens when we're in the darkness? Our minds play tricks on us. We start to have all sorts of fears. Things go out of perspective. For many, many people living in our country, living in darkness is a daily thing they're facing. They're experiencing fear and darkness on that daily basis in a really tangible way. I just want to share some stats with you, recent stats from the last few years, and I think you'll find them quite shocking. In the UK today, 4.3 million children are living in poverty. That's the equivalent of 9 children in a class of 30. Nearly 1/3 of a class. 48% of parents have said they've skipped a meal to ensure their children are fed. That's just come out this year from Home Start. 1 in 5 children and young people were identified as having a probable mental health problem. And in over 1/3 of children, the onset of mental health disorders takes place before the age of 14. I think you'll agree those stats are heartbreaking and absolutely not okay. So how does God call us to respond to this suffering? In Matthew 5:14-16, Jesus is talking to his disciples. He says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Just take that in for a moment. Jesus, the light of the world, is calling us the light of the world. What an incredible honour. He calls us to be part of his adventure, his initiative. Why would he call us that? Well, the answer is in verse 16. Let your light shine before others that they may see the good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The light of the world is in us now so that we will shine before others. So the way we steward the story of hope is to shine the love of Christ brightly against the darkness of the world, so that by God's grace they may see and treasure Jesus. Let me tell you about a girl called Anne. Anne was just 8 when her family were living through the blackout in the miners' strikes in the 70s. When all the lights would go out in an evening, Anne would shudder, hoping that her family had been able to get some of the last remaining candles in the tussle at the local shop. She felt nervous and unsettled and would find comfort in sitting around the table in the candle-lit moments, playing games and sharing stories with her family. The light that only a small flicker still brought great hope and warmth. When she was taken up to bed on an evening, her greatest joy was to stand at the window and watch as the lights in all the neighbours' homes flooded back on. She would finally feel that she could breathe deeply again. At the heart of TLG is the desire to see every church and volunteer enabled to bring the light they carry in the darkness. We currently do that through a number of trauma-informed programs that enable children and families who would never usually have the opportunity to hear about Jesus to connect with the local church. We're going to hear about one of those now as we watch a video about a young man called Joe and his family who accessed our Make Lunch Club that happens across the country.
When we go shopping, we can't have all the stuff that we want, so it makes my mum and dad, I'd feel very anxious.
I'm worried about how much, especially in the holidays, food costs. It's quite scary. I hope things are going to change. I don't think they can carry on going up like they are. It makes me feel really nervous, especially with the gas and electric going up again.
The gas prices are going higher and higher because nobody has it. Nobody has much gas anymore. So it's really hard to do stuff and get to places.
I think the children have massively struggled with the cost of living going up, and they obviously overhear conversations. As much as you try not to let them, they do know what's happening.
It makes me worried. You'd see mum and dad worried.
TLG Make Lunch seemed the best way to help in the community in a time that is really difficult for lots of people.
I feel very excited about coming to Make Lunch. I meet new families and have a nice lunch and dessert.
Make Lunch is lifting a massive burden, we'll get little bits of food when we come each week. I love that there's a community here in a church that just give to people. They don't necessarily want a single thing back, apart from you to smile. It's absolutely amazing.
Having the food here makes me feel less worried.
Coming to Make Lunch helps to show them more food as well, and different people cooking it differently, and to mum and dad cook. So that's broadened him trying new foods, which is good for him.
Normally we have sausages and mash or pasta or mac and cheese.
Learning the recipes they do here, it gives you ideas for food. Because maybe we were talking as well about showing how to cook, doing more cooking with the children to show them stuff like that as families.
My favourite thing is coming to see the volunteers. Some of them like playing football and stuff, so I play football with them. Or we can just run about playing with balloons. And they're really nice people.
We see loads of volunteers in the community while we're walking, and they're like, oh, look, there's so-and-so, and they can't wait to go up to them and give them a hug and chat to them, and it's just lovely to see. And my youngest was born in COVID, so he's really struggled with meeting new people, so it really helps him to get to know people, and he's starting to come out of his shell now.
I feel happier now that I come to Make Lunch. My mum and dad don't have to worry about looking after us, what we're going to do. They don't need to run after us. They do feel less worried now.
They make you feel better in the person, really. I feel happier when I've been on a Tuesday, and I do think that it helps the stress in the world having a place like this to come to.
It's just a joyful experience, really. Thank you, TLG Make Lunch.
I've seen that video so many times, but I just love it. It's just so good. And Make Lunch is happening in a number of places across the country in partnership with local churches. Brilliant. Make Lunch is about providing meals, yes, but it's also about building community and a space to belong, because many families who are accessing our Make Lunch clubs aren't just about needing the financial support and help around that the meals enable them to bit of respite from that worry, but also just they feel isolated and alone. So it's that space where they can be, and we're seeing that having a real impact across the country. Another program that we run, and this is the one that I work with churches to do, is our early intervention program. We're working with over 130 churches to provide coaches in schools. So we rally volunteers, and I know this is something as a church you're looking into, volunteers who commit to meeting with one child for 1 hour every week for a year. And it's a big investment where people come and declare, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be turning up and with you. And for many of the children that access our early intervention, they haven't had that constant figure. We were singing that song earlier about my God's not going to run out on us. We're so privileged as God's people to know that we've got someone who's not going to run out on us. And what coaching is declaring to children and young people is that they're going to have someone who's not going to run out on them. And so it's so, so powerful. I've got a story now. I just want to show you another story from Caris. And this is a really powerful story about what early intervention has done for her.
At school, I just felt alone and I had no friends. Before TLG, I tried different ways to make friends. For example, if somebody told me to do the wrong thing, I did it because I thought if I did it, they would like me. I was vulnerable at that time. I felt like I was in darkness.
Caris is a whirlwind of fun. We would always say about Caris that she had leadership qualities beyond her years, but she would find it very difficult to regulate her emotions, and she found friendships quite difficult to navigate.
I was sent to the head teacher's office multiple times, and I wasn't really proud of that.
When I met Caris, she was quite sad and lonely because she didn't have any friends. When the other children had their birthday parties and things, she wasn't invited.
When I started coaching with Faye, I got overwhelmed with joy. And I told her everything that happened, and she used to give me words of advice that would help me. Faye was there for me. Talking to her made me reflect on my character. It taught me how to regulate myself around people. Because of that, I learned how to make friends and how to keep them and how to make sure our friendship is secure. I started getting invited to parties, and it really made me happy because now I knew that our friendship was strong. Every session I did with Faye, it had a meaning to me. I felt like so, and I was pinching every negative emotion down. And for cooking, I felt like I was just spreading my joy.
Do you remember when we were making the cookies? We were
forgot the sugar.
We were so busy talking, so we had to roll all the pastry up together. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I sprinkled sugar all over the pastry and we re-rolled it again. But it tasted all right.
It was delicious.
After a year of coaching, life for Caris in school, from my point of view, looks far calmer. She's really grown as a child, and those leadership potential characteristics we've seen in her for years and years and years seem to have really come to fruition in a lot of ways.
Miss Darren was getting tired of seeing me. Now that I know how to say no, I told her I'm not going to come to your office anymore, and she said we'll see about that. And then months after, she said you really kept your promise, didn't you? She was so proud of me.
The funding for something like TLG early intervention is not something that we could afford. The money that's given to allow that to happen is having a huge impact on the children. They're happier, they feel seen and heard. TLG early intervention is having a huge impact not only on schools but therefore on the local community.
Now I feel positive about my future. TLG coaches has taught me that I can do anything in life if I put my mind to it. It changed my life.
I've loved working with you, know that. And I'm looking forward to hearing how the future goes.
Thank you, TLG.
I love that. I love that so much. Caris saying, I'm spreading my joy when I do my baking. I don't know how many of you feel like you're doing that when you're baking, but that's what Caris does. And just I met Faye the other week, actually. She's an amazing woman who just loves doing what she does. It's so good. And I think the delight that I get in my role is I get to hear from local churches and from schools about the impact of early intervention, about the coaching. And as the head teacher says there, is impacting the individual lives of the children, but the ripples go out to the families, to the school community, to the wider community. It's about giving that hope and that future. I was in Mid Wales a few weeks ago, and I was catching up with the church there and talking to a member of staff about a particular child who was really lacking in confidence. They felt really kind of unable to express themselves. They couldn't even commit things to paper when they were writing things down for fear of making a mistake and getting it wrong. They were just riddled with insecurity and worry. And so the school put them forward to be coached. And by this coach meeting with them and investing in them and helping them to spot they could do different things, their confidence has grown. This child himself says, I feel like I've found my voice. I get emotional when I talk about these things. It's incredible. The member of staff was saying that she teaches him for dance. Now, dance wasn't on this boy's radar at all when she first started. That was not what he wanted to do. She said the impact of coaching has been so great that this boy now actively participates in the dance lessons, but even leads groups during those sessions. This is the sort of thing that's happening across the country. It's just fantastic. Back to the beginning. Skip through. William Booth said, I'm not waiting for a move of God. I am a move of God. The founder of the Salvation Army, he said, I am not waiting for a move of God. I am a move of God. Jesus calls us light of the world. And we must believe that every flicker makes a difference. Like for Anne, during those miners' strikes, during the blackout, a little flicker just gave hope in the moment. We're living in difficult times. It's not easy for any of us right now. We continue to face a cost of living crisis, climate crisis. There's large cracks in the key services that are there to help the vulnerable. And yet, churches like yourselves are making a difference. Churches we partner across the country have helped over 5,000 children in the last year. In early intervention alone, that's 10,000 coaching sessions have been offered across the country. So I know you're on the edge of getting involved, exploring this. You're going to be part of something that's having an impact, yes, locally with individual children, but is changing the situation across the country. So I just want to finish by inviting you, asking you to consider how might God be asking you to respond today. How might he be prompting you? On your chairs nearby, I placed leaflets, and there's just some opportunities that you can respond today if God's just stirring you. One way is just to simply say, I want to be kept informed about what's going on across the country with Transforming Lives for Good. I want to just be kept in touch. And you can do that by completing the inside of the flyer with your contact details. Whichever bits of the contact details you're happy to share with us, then we just ask you to fill that in, and you're saying, yes, I'd like to be kept informed, but also you're saying, I'm going to pray for what is going on. Oh, thank you. I knew I'd forget doing everything at once. Thank you. Please keep going on that. You're saying you're going to stand with us in prayer, because we know prayer makes the difference. These children's lives, they're not going to be changed just by human intervention, by people turning up. It's going to take God to intervene. So we really, really value your prayers. So one way you can get involved is just by completing that inside, left-hand side of the flyer, and then giving it to me before you go today. If you choose to do that, we'd just like to say a thank you and give you a little gift. So this is a book called Out of the Ordinary, written by our founder, Tim Morfin, which talks about the incredible God story of transforming lives since we started. It's full of really, really encouraging stories about what God has done, the way he's spoken, the way he's provided. Personally, I found it really, really inspiring when I read it. So I'd love to give any one of you who returns a form to me today a copy of that book. Another way you might choose that you would love just to support the work we're doing, like the head teacher said on the video, schools can't afford this sort of intervention. Many families can't afford the Make Lunch, which is why we provide it for them for free. But obviously we do need finances, so it's an invitation. You can join us by supporting us financially, by saying, yes, I want to become a regular donor, what we call a hope giver. If you want to do that, please, in addition to completing the left-hand side, just fill out the right-hand side as well. If you've got your bank details with you, you can fill them out. If you haven't, that's fine. One of our team can just get into contact with you to clarify that back at our head office. Again, if that's something you're able to do, I'd love to give you a book. The third way, and I'm just going to skip over this today because I know there's lots and lots of people already expressing interest, but you might think, do you know what, I'd love to get involved too. I'd love to volunteer and be a coach. And I know there's many of you in here already who are thinking, oh yeah, this might be for me. If you think that's for you, probably the best thing, rather than just ticking the box in the form, is just speak to Alan and say, this might be something I'd be interested in doing as well. So I'm just going to leave you. You've got the forms there. I'm going to be hanging around after the service. Feel free to come and have a chat to me if you want to know any more, if you want to hear any more stories and things. I love to talk more. I know I would love to do that, but I'm aware of the time. Do fill out the forms if you feel prompted to do so and drop them back to me. But I just want to say thank you once again. It really is a joy to be here in a church that has such an incredible heart for community. It's not just in your name. It's evident you're here in the community and doing one.
Just a couple of things from me. Firstly, we've got quite an exciting opportunity this week, directly related to what Dom's been sharing with us. So on Tuesday morning at, was it Tuesday at 11:30 or 1:30? I can't remember now. It's on Tuesday. I have a meeting with a group of head teachers linked to the trust that I work for. And I've already shared some resources around the early intervention scheme. And really, my prayer is that it's a bit of an Esther moment. It's one of those... am I too close or too far away? What am I doing wrong? Okay. My prayer is it's one of those kind of, for such a time as this. Sometimes, I don't know whether you know, but I had a change of job that was quite a big change in terms of sector, and kind of wondered what God has been doing in that. But this is a real opportunity on Tuesday, really to give people across the trust information about Transforming Lives for Good and the early intervention program, but also an opportunity to say who's up for this in September. And so I'd be particularly appreciative of your prayers that the right school comes forward, or schools. Who knows what God's got in store for us? But the right school comes up and says, yes, please, we want to get involved. So some of those schools are very local. So one of those schools is Old Stratford. So that would be ideal, wouldn't it? But yeah, if you could pray for me and pray for those head teachers as they think about the scheme and how they're going to respond, that would be really great. Second thing is just some encouraging news from the Hygiene Bank. We've got a little bit of a challenge in that we're starting to get overhead costs coming through, and we've got some bills to pay. And Ian shared with me just a few moments ago that somebody had really kindly donated a big sum towards that. So we'd appreciate your prayers for more funding to come in, but also to thank God for his provision, and we know that he's got our back. So yeah, thank you for your continued support for the Hygiene Bank.
Hi, just a couple of things. A few weeks ago, I got offered a job as a school caretaker. I felt in some ways quite underqualified, but I know a lot of people were praying for me, and yeah, really felt at peace during the interview, and yeah, I want to thank God for that. And just another small thing, I lost my phone this morning, I prayed about it, and I found it a while later. So
sometimes, like quite a bit at the moment, I'm just really struggling for lots of reasons, and something that I find really helpful is to sort of remember who God is and who I am in him. And there's this prayer, that I just wanted to read the first part of because it's a long one, and I just think it's really encouraging, and maybe it's helpful for someone else. Hello. or even closer. That's scary when it whistles at me. If anyone, I'm sure I'm not the only person who struggles in life, with all sorts of things. And so maybe this is helpful to you. Just to sort of think, kind of grounding yourself. That's kind of a word people use these days, isn't it? Really sort of grounding yourself in who you are in God and who he is to you and who he is in the world. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, you'll kind of get the gist, I think, when I read it. My dear Lord Jesus, I come to you now to be restored in you, to be renewed in you, to receive your life and your love and all the grace and mercy I so desperately need this day. Sorry, I didn't think I was going to cry. Just ignore the crying, because it's a God thing. I honour you as my Lord, and I surrender every aspect and dimension of my life to you. I give you my spirit, soul and body, my heart, mind and will. I cover myself with your blood, my spirit, soul and body, my heart, mind and will. I ask your Holy Spirit to restore me in you, renew me in you, and lead this time of prayer. In all that I now pray, I stand in total agreement with your Spirit and with all those praying for me by the Spirit of God and by the Spirit of God alone. I think it's an amazing thing that, I'm upset because I'm feeling closer to God, and that happens sometimes when I come to church and I'm struggling. But that's actually a real blessing, isn't it? That we can be safe and open, with people and be able to share what's hard and be able to receive God. Like, when things are difficult, being in God's presence, churns things up, makes me cry, but not because he's bad, but because he's good, and he reminds me how good he is and how that's what I need to listen to. So don't be put off by the crying. That's just God, meeting with me in my tender places that I'm struggling with. So I'm wanting to be encouraging. Sorry about the crying. And I pray that God would bless you by drawing you close to him when things are a struggle for you. All right.
Thank you, Nikki, so much. And maybe there are a few here for whom that prayer is just what you need to hear from God today. So thanks, Ian.
That's fantastic. Absolutely powerful. The world is constantly bombarding us with God's dead, God doesn't exist. You watch movies, and it's just constantly bombarded. So I'm just really, that kind of encouragement. It's great to meet together, and please meet intimately and encourage each other. God's word and what he means to you, because the world is fighting against us constantly. So I just encourage you to do that, and thank you for that powerful word.
I can say lift it up because he's my husband. Oh, I just lift up. Thank you, Nikki. I kind of needed that this morning, and I feel like I'm going to cry as well, and I don't want to cry. And I think, sometimes we need permission to be upset, and we need permission to feel sad. Even though we know that God is there, even though we know that, God has our back. And I've felt guilty these last 2 or 3 weeks because our lovely little doggie died, and she was so precious to us, but to me. And there's part of me that thinks, well, she was only a dog, but she was our family. She was part of our family. And she was my little friend and companion, and I miss her, and I feel lonely without her. And Ian's going away in July for 4 weeks, selfishly, to Australia for the rugby. And I was thinking, well, that's fine, because it'll be me and the dog, and I'll have the dog. But obviously now I don't have our sweet dog. And I just want to testify that I know that God is going to be with me. And I know that he's going to support me and strengthen me and give me the courage to be on my own, which I don't mind being on my own generally because, you know, the dog's there. But obviously the dog isn't there. So I want to testify in advance to God's provision of being brave, courageous, and giving me the strength to go through that little time. And I know many of you will have experienced that for a much longer period of time than I have. And, you know, I bless you for that. But I want to testify in advance to God's provision and blessing, because I think potentially it could be a real good time of blessing as well. Thank you.
Last one, because then we're going to move into communion. Thanks, Judy.
Just going to share something encouraging with you that I read this morning. God is never overwhelmed. Jesus is never defeated. So the Holy Spirit can only lead us in triumph. I also read, it is not the circumstances that are the problem. It is our perception of the circumstances that makes them difficult.
Thank you, Judy. It's good, isn't it, to hear from one another, to hear how God is at work through his body, and to be reminded and to be built up in our faith. And we come together and we worship a God for whom nothing is impossible and nothing is too small, that he knows every thought, he knows every word before it's on our lips, and that he is at work and he invites us into his body and his kingdom building community, and he weaves us into the plans and the things that he is doing. What a good God we have. We're going to pause and remember, and the remembering is important. So what we've shared of what God has done speaks into those times as we step forward and we anticipate the challenges ahead, because we know God is faithful